We want to take you live now to Pontiac, Michigan. You're looking at Jennifer Crumbley. She is the mother of the Oxford High School shooter on the witness stand now testifying. She and her husband were being tried separately with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the 4 students their son shot and killed back in November of 2021. Let's listen.
The one horse I had was kind of aggressive, so it intimidated him, and it kind of turned him off from going to the barn. It's kind of boring if you're not the person with the horse. There's a lot of standing around and a lot of nothing.
Okay. So would you spend time together with him at home?
Yeah.
Okay, tell the jury what kinds of things you guys did as together or as a family.
We did a lot of board games. We also had the virtual reality set for the PS4, so we did a lot of the Beat Saber. You can probably Google that.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's like you're holding lightsabers and it has music and you have to like hit the beats, but it's all in 3D. So it's a virtual reality headset.
Okay, so you would do that with him?
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
We had a pool. We liked swimming together. I mean, really just normal stuff.
Okay, did you do holiday things?
We did.
Give us some examples.
So every year around Thanksgiving, I always cook Thanksgiving dinner. The day after, we would go cut our Christmas tree down. And then we would decorate that weekend. We'd watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Halloween, we grew our own pumpkins. So we always carved our own pumpkins and had a whole bunch put around the house. Easter, it's normal family stuff.
Did you have an interest in like home improvement kind of stuff?
Yeah, our house was an auction house. So basically it was wrapped in blue tarp when we bought it at auction. So we've been trying to improve the house since 2015. So we new roof, exterior, and then I've been working on exterior and interior ever since.
Were there things that your son was interested in outside of video games? Was there anything academic that he was interested in?
He really liked history. He was a big history buff. We can play Trivial Pursuit, and he would get me in history every single time. But that was probably his only favorite subject. The rest he could do without.
How did he do in school?
He did good if he applied himself. His problem was he didn't try as hard as I think he could, so he had up and down grades. I would say it's about average.
Okay, and when you say about average, was that something that you talked to him about? Was that something you monitored? Tell the jury about that.
Yeah, you heard about the Power School app during this trial, so I had it on my phone, and I was on it multiple times a day. And his grades would fluctuate based on what assignments the teachers turned in on the Power School app. Our biggest struggle with him were missing assignments. That was the one thing we battled all the time.
Why was that a hot button issue for you?
Because there's no reason why he should have missing assignments. He had a homeroom class and get assignments done in.
Okay. There were, you talked about your job. What were the average hours you worked a week?
I usually I got to the office between 7 and 8 in the morning and leave anywhere between 4 and 6.
And we've heard lots of evidence already. It was family friendly. Yeah. Were you able to go and leave and go as you needed to?
Pretty much, yep.
Okay. Did you care about your job?
I did a lot.
Okay. Explain, did you have any changes in positions over the year or year and a half, 2 years before this?
I did. When I first started with the company, I was hired in as a social media coordinator. I stayed in that role until about 2020. I got promoted to director of marketing. And I held the position until I was terminated.
Okay. And you were, did you work during COVID?
I did. I worked remotely for about 6 months during COVID. Then I went back to the office in, I believe it was August of 2020.
Did you enjoy work?
I did. It was fun. It was, marketing's, it's exciting, and I like doing graphic design. I did. I really liked my job.
Now, the jury already heard about Brian. Brian testified.
Correct.
Tell the jury about Brian.
Well, I've known him since high school. We've been friends since then. He's part of the horse community. He has horses. And as you heard yesterday, we did have an extramarital affair. That's probably the extent of our, but we were good friends too.
How often in terms of the affair, how often would you spend time together with Brian during 2021?
Maybe an average of once a week.
Okay, how long
Less.
did the affair last over?
About 6 months.
Do you feel like that affair caused you to neglect Ethan or not spend time with him, your son, in any way?
No.
Explain why you don't feel that's the case.
Because when I met with Brian, it was in the mornings. On his way home from the station, he would pass my work. And so the time I was coming to work, we would meet at the Costco parking lot. And that was it. He'd go about his day, I'd go about mine.
And is it fair to say that you lied to keep that affair going?
Yes, I did.
And I apologize if I asked this, I just am not writing notes. Did you say the date range that started?
It was around spring of 2021.
Okay. And as far as you knew, did you ever talk to your son about that?
No.
And did you ever talk to your husband about it?
No.
If anything, you lied to him about what you were doing, or lied by omission, not telling him.
No, yeah. As far as I knew, I was going to work in the morning. That was. Yeah.
Okay. Outside of those morning times, how many other times would you say you and Brian got together?
It was 2 or 3. I went on some business trips where I would stay overnight, and he would meet me. He would meet me at the hotel.
So that happened 2 or 3 times?
2 or 3 times.
Were there other business trips you took where he did not meet you?
Yeah, there was quite a few.
When Christy Gibson Marshall testified, do you remember who she was?
I do.
Who was she?
She was the assistant vice principal.
And she commented she knew Ethan in elementary school, or she knew your son in elementary school, correct?
Correct.
And she said she testified obviously already about recognizing him. Did that surprise you?
No.
She also mentioned something about emails with you. Do you recall having email exchanges with her?
There was one regarding his report card, getting additional help in math.
Was there any time at that point or into high school that you ever had to email with teachers about discipline issues?
Not discipline, no.
How often would you email about missing assignments or grade type issues?
That was a regular thing.
Okay, and you said you monitor power schools every day. Approximately how many times a month would you say you went to the teachers, or was it weekly? I don't know.
It would be, I wouldn't say it was on a regular basis, but when it happened, it was a series of messages. He'd be struggling in geometry, and so me and the teacher would message back and forth quite a bit, and then he'd start getting better and it was die off. So it was sporadic, but it was a lot when it happened.
Now, we saw pictures of your house.
Yes.
How did you feel about seeing those pictures?
Horrible.
Okay, why is that?
Because my son has a very messy room, and it was right after Thanksgiving, and we hosted Thanksgiving, and it was pretty messy. It was kind of embarrassing.
Okay.
Really embarrassing.
Explain the 2-bedroom thing, or what was going on with that.
My son, he had 1 bedroom, and it got out of control. And every time I go to clean it, I just shut the door. I just didn't want to deal with it. So then I told him he could just use the guest bedroom until I could get his room deep cleaned. The day before Thanksgiving, I was deep cleaning because we have people over every Thanksgiving, and my intention was to clean both rooms, but I caught my oven on fire in the self-clean mode. So instead, I had the fire department out and everything. So instead of getting his rooms clean, I was scraping out the black charcoal stuff inside your oven so I could cook dinner the next day. But yeah, he was in a 2nd bedroom because I didn't want to clean his room anymore. It was enough.
Did you have any plans to do anything with all that stuff?
Yeah, we're going through a lot of stuff because he outgrew a lot of the clothes and the shoes. There's a lot of toy-like things that he doesn't use anymore, so we're just going to pack it up and donate it.
Okay, and when were you planning to do that?
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, before he got new stuff.
Now, we saw a video, I guess I want to talk to you about, there's one friend in particular your son spent a lot of time with, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we're not going to say his name, but let's just refer to him as the friend.
Okay.
Okay. Overall, was that your son's only friend?
That was his only friend that came over. He did have friends that he talked to during school, but that was the only one that he spent time with outside of school.
And how often would you say he came over?
Oh, he used to walk home with them every day from school. The summertime, he'd go on camping trips with us. Sometimes he would spend more than a week with us. He called him my second son.
Okay, he was the second son. Did you know he was going to be moving away at any point?
Not that abruptly, no.
Okay, so when he moved away, is it fair to say it was a surprise to you and your son?
It was.
What kinds of things would the boys do together at your house?
Oh, they go down to the lake and go fishing. They would walk to Little Caesars or Frosty Boy. They go in the backyard, shoot the BBs. They go swimming in the pool. We took them bowling a lot. They played video games.
Now, when you had him over at the house, or I guess was it more common for him to be at your house or for your son to be at his friend's house?
My son has never been to his house.
Okay, why is that?
Because he had OCD, not my son, his friend had OCD issues, and he didn't want other people in the house.
At your house, did that friend exhibit any issues?
No, not at all.
Okay, so were you surprised when he moved?
Yeah, very surprised.
We saw evidence that you had Life 360 on your phone, and it was on James's phone, right?
Correct.
Can you tell the jury what Life 360 is, what the point of it is, why it's on the phone?
It's a family tracking app, so you know where people are at. My husband's mother-in-law got sick in the middle of April, and instead of me worrying about where he was while he was down in Florida with his mother and I was up here, we just installed the app on his phone, so I knew if he was at the hospital or if I knew he was at his dad's house. So just that way I'm at the bottom. I'm always worried about him and places he goes, so it's just one thing that eased my mind a little bit.
Do you, is that something you frequently message your husband, where are you, where are you, where are you?
Mm-hmm, a lot.
Okay, so the jury's gonna see the entire stack of exhibits. If they go through all of your messages, how often a week would you say you're on top of him about where he is?
Daily.
What about your son? Were you ever worried about where he was?
I mean, not during the day. He was at school. If he didn't get home from school the time he was supposed to, I'd worry about him.
Okay. And did you ever ask James about him in messages?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The prosecution introduced evidence that makes it sound like you and James only talk about these horses.
Actually, the form of the question makes it sound, and this is direct exam, not cross, so these should be non-leading questions as well.
How often would you say you discuss your horses versus your son when you're messaging each other?
A lot more with the horses.
Why is that?
Because my horses, at least, were accident prone, and my husband didn't know a lot about horses. They were more my thing. With him working from home, a lot of times I'd have him go out and check on them, tell him what to do. He started getting into them. He had questions. I knew my son was at school. I knew where he was at during the day. I can talk to him after school. Horses can't talk, so if something's wrong, we've got to kind of figure it out. But yeah, we talked a lot about horses.
Is it fair to say that, did you have additional conversations with James about horses and or Ethan?
Yeah.
How often would you and James talk about or talk to Ethan?
Well, talk to him every day. Talk about him probably every day too.
Okay. Did Ethan have scheduling things you had to work out?
Yeah, he had bowling practices throughout the week, bowling matches, and he worked part-time at a diner.
Well, we have been listening to Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of the Oxford High School shooter, there on the witness stand. She and her husband are being tried separately with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for the 4 students that their son shot and killed in November of 2021.
Now, from what we can tell, this has been the defense mostly questioning Crumbley's mother about her son.
We want to bring in now CBS News correspondent Elaine Quijano. She has been covering this trial. She joins us now on the phone. Elaine, talk to us, first of all, just about why this case is so extraordinary.
Yeah, this is a case that is being closely watched well beyond that Michigan courtroom that we're watching right now, because there are legal implications here potentially about how parents may be scrutinized in the wake of shootings, mass shootings committed by their children. We have not seen this kind of legal approach taken. The charges in this case are 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. And what the prosecution is essentially arguing here is that it was the parents' lack of action. It was the inaction, prosecutors say, by Jennifer Crumbley in this particular case that they said led to the outcome of the 4 students being killed, 7 other people wounded in this case. And so the prosecution has painted a picture and attempted to characterize Jennifer Crumbley as someone who missed opportunities to intervene. Just this morning, we saw from the prosecution journal entries entered into evidence by the prosecution that show the shooter's state of mind leading up to the day of the shooting. There were entries such as this, quote, "I have zero help for my mental problems." Here's another entry from the journal this morning. "I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, so I can't get any help." So it is against that backdrop that the defense is now tasked with trying to paint a different picture of the defendant. And that's why we have seen Jennifer Crumbley take the stand today. There had been some question about whether or not she would, and this afternoon we are seeing her take the stand in her own defense.
And it's pretty remarkable, Elaine, because from what you're saying, that means they need to prove that it was her inaction that somehow led to people losing their lives. You've pointed to some of the evidence. I understand there was also a text message she sent to her son clearly saying, "Don't do it." Talk to us more about the evidence that you saw. I know you were in the courtroom recently, and as you've been covering this, give us a fuller picture of the evidence that may even support her claim that she did try to do something.
That's right, Errol. I was sitting in the courtroom in Pontiac, Michigan, where Jennifer Crumbley is testifying right now, just behind where she sat at the defense table last week when opening statements took place, and her defense team essentially argued that particular text that you're talking about was in reference, according to the defense, to Jennifer Crumbley believing at that time that her son, the shooter, would take his life. So that is the context for that particular text that you're referencing. But you're right, this is a case that has been highly emotional from the very beginning. We heard very early on in this trial, as various pieces of evidence were read aloud into the record, as surveillance video was shown to the jurors of how the shooting unfolded, we heard the defendant herself become emotional. I saw that. I saw what appeared to be, at one point during opening statements, her wiping her eyes. I heard her sniffling. And we saw some of that today as some surveillance video was played in the courtroom. You had a law enforcement official from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office testify about that morning as first responders entered the Oxford High School shooting scene, what they found. He became highly emotional and said, "I know these officers, and that was the most difficult thing I've ever had to do, is walking by and running by, essentially, victims who were on the ground in order to get to the shooter, who at that time was still very much posing a threat." So it's been an emotionally fraught case. And this now is an attempt by the defense to show the jurors another side of Jennifer Crumbley, one that the prosecution argues is not necessarily enough to sort of mitigate those missed opportunities that the prosecution said both she and her husband had the chance to do. One thing I want to say is that there had been some question about whether the shooter, her son, would testify. We know now that appears to not be the case, that according to some of the proceedings that we saw this morning, it appears that likely will not happen. But we will continue to monitor, obviously, what's happening there in that courtroom. But an extraordinary turn of events here. Jennifer Crumbley, as her defense team alluded to, in her opening statement, the defense attorney said she would take the stand, and indeed, she is doing that now.
All right, Elaine Quijano, thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
You're welcome.